Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 76 today for the Hungarian Grand Prix in Season 4. If you guys did miss the previous one at the British GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. A very, very chaotic one right at the end, kind of comical in a way, really. The Mercedes car, spoiler alert, collided on the last lap and DNF'd, and we managed to somehow finesse our way, hobbling across the line on low fuel. Kind of almost like Hamilton in real life hobbling across the line on three wheels. We kind of got across with no fuel in the back of that thing to finish off a very strong race weekend for the team. Of course, Pierre Gasly, I can't lie, that entire race weekend pretty much had me in his back pocket. You know, qualifying was a bit of an embarrassing show in terms of how far off we were again in qualifying. He made it through to the very first Q3 the team's made this entire season. So we're hoping that we can maybe try and emulate that a little bit at Hungary. Hopefully that kind of pace that Gasly showed at Silverstone carries over to the Hungaroring, but it's a very different circuit. You know, Monaco without the barriers. Essentially, that means the kind of issues sometimes our car has had in recent races with kind of being a bit too draggy might be pushed to the wayside a bit. But having said that, ahead of this race weekend, we did have that ultimate drag reduction update we purchased last episode come in on the activity timeline, so that's going to reduce that issue for us massively, and it's an ultimate upgrade. So no matter what upgrade it is, an ultimate one's always going to be quite impactful. I think we'll see the difference there. I'm just hoping for one, really, honestly, it's a dry race weekend, because that was a very frustrating and obviously arduous process getting through the entire race at Silverstone in the intermediate conditions. Can be quite exciting, I admit, when it's a changeable race, but when it's all race long, it really is a little bit dull and a bit of a challenge that you kind of just would rather not actually have, really, to be honest, especially in a car that's lacking a little bit of downforce. But going to this race weekend, then the car is also going to look a little bit different. It's still got the general kind of blacked out kind of look to it, especially from the front and the side, but it's got a little dusting of white now at the very top end of the chassis and the engine cover, just to bleed through a bit more of that natural and original white base colour we had in the first few seasons for the rest of this season, and then going on to the next year when I'm sure we'll have a different livery. But of course, there's still some way to go till we get to that kind of point in consideration for that part of the car. But we get into the race weekend itself. This is after practice, and we've now got enough R&D points to go ahead and purchase two further major upgrades on the aerodynamics. That's the front and rear, again, major downforce on the left and far right side of the tree, and that is pretty much where we were at, I'm pretty sure, when we ended Season 3, because I don't think we had those two upgrades in the middle that had to do with DRS purchase. I think we maybe had one, I think the minor upgrade we had, so we're near enough where we were when we ended last season. You can see really how much of a difference going bankrupt and having that all reset, or most of it reset, is made. You know, the amount of gains the other teams have made on the aero side are pretty profound to say that this is where we were, and we're one of the best teams on aero at the end of last season. So you can see really how nicely and naturally the AI are making upgrades through this season. If we look at the other parts of the car for the first time really this season, because they've been shut down for the kind of cost-saving measures so far this season, engine-wise we've dropped a little bit, but you can see generally also the Works Renault power unit has dropped as well, and it seems in terms of what we maximized the pure engine speed. It's really only the ERS and the fuel saving, which obviously will help in the race, but pure engine power, we've maxed out the engine. So maybe it just seems we've hit a kind of wall of development with the Renault power unit. To be fair, going into this year, I think the base level stat, the best engine on the grid, was once again Mercedes, whereas of course last season it was this Renault that we adopted in Season 3. And then chassis wise, again, we've dropped a little bit, but we've only got 3 ultimate upgrades left on this side of the R&D, so you'll see that if we were to make those upgrades, we would step up quite rapidly as well. And to be honest, to maybe help us out in the acceleration department, I may look to upgrade that weight reduction, that ultimate one in the very top right there, because even though now we're almost getting to a point where we were at the end of the last year on aero side, the car still feels a little bit heavy under acceleration. The other cars definitely made a step forward, whether that's to do with further drag reduction or maybe the lightweight chassis, I don't know, but I'm going to hazard a guess it's maybe that. So maybe an ultimate upgrade on the chassis side, finally a different upgrade to the aero, might be the kind of winning way we kind of get back to, not quite to the top, I would say. I think we do a very, very good job if this car was a winning race car again by the end of this season, but I at least hope it can be a podium finishing car by the end of the season, and into the next one we can actually finally mount a comeback of sorts. We've got to be very realistic. We can't be, thinking that we can get back into this at all this season. But obviously that's the entire excitement of what's happened to this entire team. I think overall we've coped quite well as a team. I think in terms of where we are in the championship, I think it could have been a lot worse already. We could have been behind Renault and Mercedes in the constructor standings, but we've really made the most of the races where the opportunities are there. We've made the most of that luck, and then obviously we had a few races where it's been quite difficult, I'll admit, the Dutch GP in Canada. But overall, very happy where we are, and we're going to this second half of the season, then off a really fantastic home Grand Prix, and into this race weekend, hoping that Ultimate Upgrade can show some decent improvement. And in Q1 at least, for the first time, both of us are in the top 10. Not that it matters, of course, because all it matters is getting through into the top 16 to make it through to the second part of qualifying, but just showing that maybe even when the other teams have not fully turned up their engines and raring to go in the first part of qualifying, we've at least stepped up a little bit, and we're showing our hand early for some improvements. And I've got to say, actually, for the first time now, this car, off certain corners, especially the slower ones, actually felt quite punchy, whereas before it's felt quite lethargic and quite slow. So I'm hoping that's the ultimate drag reduction update kicking in and actually making the car feel that much better off the exit. There's a little bit less drag, pulling it down in those acceleration zones, and maybe we can see that in the race if we can try and make some nice overtakes on this main straight. But right now, in Q2, then that first lap was on a worn set of soft tires, because we did set two fresh laps in Q1, because my first lap in Q1 wasn't actually that great, unfortunately. So this is now the first time on a fresh set of softs, and to my surprise, in Sector 1, we hardly gained anything, and even in Sector 2, really, only about 1.5 tenths. There's the delta time of about, at least it was 5 tenths, it told me on the screen, from the worn tyres I used to these fresh ones. I've set a purple second sector, which is surprising, red first sector, so it's been a very weird second lap here in Q2, and now a major lock-up on the front left there, and I carry that forward into the next right-hand. A lot of understeer now kicking in the last sector, not what I needed, so we're only going to gain about 3 tenths here with a new set of tyres compared to a scrub set. And where is that going to place us? It's going to be up in P11, which I was surprised at, but it's actually still disappointing to me, because once again, for the second time in a row now, our teammate Pierre Gasly gets through into the top 10 shootout. But you can clearly see the car has made a massive step forward here with the ultimate upgrade. We're P11. To be honest, in a way, I'm going to put a nice spin on this. It's maybe the best place to be for a car like ours, just outside the top 10. Free choice of tyres, the highest placed man on the grid with a free choice of tyre, so we could go and start on the medium tyres for a very nice one stop that could help us jump a few of the guys up ahead of us in that top 10, including our teammate maybe. So it may be a pretty decent place to be, but obviously it's still frustrating to be that far off Gasly in terms of pure lap time there. That's still a very confusing amount of time to be losing to your teammate in the same car. And so I'm getting to the point where I need to accept that Gasly just seems to be a very, very good qualifier in this game maybe. I don't know about any of you guys, if you got Gasly as your teammate in your My Team career modes, but for me, he's absolutely whipping my arse on a Saturday. But on Sunday, where it matters, we've still been getting the job done. Of course, he had a great race last time, to be fair, so I'm just hoping for another strong race and another strong finish. If we can get another, P5 and 6, that would be insane for us as a team to do it 2 in a row at Hungary. But from P11, you never know, and at Hungary, you never know. It's a very tight, twisting circuit. A lot can happen. High tyre wear as well. Let's go to the grid and see how they all round out in the top 10 and see what we can do on the race day.
Welcome to Budapest once again for another round of the Formula One World Championship. Historically, a good race for first victories, with Button, Hill, Alonso and Heikki Kovalainen all reaching the top step of the podium for the first time here. 14 corners then for our drivers to navigate at the 2.7-mile Hungaroring today. It's 6 lefts and 8 rights around a lap here, with average speeds in the region of 120 miles per hour. And with me as usual is Anthony Davidson. Let's have a chat about McLaren. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he starts from pole position, with Daniel Ricciardo slotting in alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Perez, Lando Norris, and Sainz, Gasly, Giovinazzi, Kvyat, and the owner driver. Bottas, Hamilton, Alexander Albon, and Matsushita, Stroll, Russell, Esteban Ocon. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Nicholas Latifi, Schumacher, De Vries, Aitken, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
So a little bit of a surprising starting grid, I will admit, but again, Carlos Sainz faces engine penalties from his team, so that must be quite frustrating for him. He's down in P6. He did technically qualify on pole position, but now the pole man has inherited that pole as Max Verstappen alongside Ricciardo. Lando Norris also a little bit slow. He just qualified down in P5 behind Sergio Perez, and Charles Leclerc did an absolute madness in that slow Ferrari. I mean, to be fair, Giovinazzi also got into the top 10, so you can clearly see not only have we been improving, Ferrari have been finally stepping back up. They got knocked down with that engine settlement, but they've been making upgrades to make up for it, and so they did improve, and they both made it through into the top 10, but still, the fact that to see Leclerc way up there in P3, considering they've been fighting for the lower points pretty much since that engine nerf, is pretty crazy, and so it very mimics kind of almost real life what he's been doing in that slower Ferrari car of his, so fair play, but that's very intriguing then. The two championship leaders in P1 and P2, a little bit down the order, maybe going to be in traffic in the first part of the race. For us, though, like I said, free choice of tyre, so maybe the best place to be, especially now with Ocon having a grid penalty. We actually move up into P10 and we still have the free choice of tyre. So we'll start in the mediums, go to the hards, and the hope is I can jump some people on the 2-stop ahead of us, and if there are people on a 1-stop, even then hopefully the medium tyre will be an advantage at the start of this race once their softs start going off. But it was a very long, wet Grand Prix last time at Silverstone, but chaotic at the end. Will we see anything of the same sort here today? Here we go to 5 red lights of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and we are underway from P10 on the grid, on mediums though, versus everyone on soft tyres ahead of us, and we're using plenty of ERS in towards turn 1, looking to maybe go to the middle of Giovinazzi and Kvyat, a little bit close to the Ferrari car. Kvyat makes a good dive on the outside of Carlos Sainz, and meanwhile the Ferrari is able to out-traction us on the inside there, so that maybe that's the difference you're seeing between the soft and the medium compound, but nevertheless we're going to continue trying to fight the Italian. Doesn't quite work though, we get pinched on the inside, and instead we actually slow ourselves down the hill to the point where Valtteri Bottas now in the Mercedes looks to go around the outside, the man we had such a fierce fight with on the last lap of the British Grand Prix, and in the end actually came to wars with the man right behind him, Lewis Hamilton. He's unable to overtake us then, but we're going to look at a replay here because we need to highlight what a banging start this was for Pierre Gasly. Good acceleration off the lights, but then a massive lunge on the outside to the point where he's side by side with Sergio Perez for P4 here, but he has completely jumped Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, both of which got caught up in the middle of the kind of fighting they were with. I think Lando got caught up behind Verstappen, and then Sainz just got caught up battling Kvyat on the entry to turn 1. So a great start by my teammate, and he's up in P5 then, as we're still here in P10, looking at the back of Giovinazzi now, but lap 2, fancying ourselves as Gio goes defensive, and we again oh so close to making contact with the Italian on the right hand side of our car, but again we get pinched out and we can't quite get that move done. So you can see we've got the confidence clearly, and actually, generally speaking, I'm feeling quite punchy in these tyres, but I think that final bit of traction, Giovinazzi still got that advantage being on the soft tyres, but give it a few laps then, and those softs will start to wear off. No matter how, good the tyre upgrades have been for these AI cars, that soft tyre does not go long at all here around the Hungarian. Right now, as it stands in this Grand Prix, Daniel Ricciardo leads the race ahead of Verstappen, who's been jumped off pole position. Not surprising though, because the Red Bull did have pole in the hands of Sainz, so it's just a case of not having that penalty there, and Ricciardo showing the Red Bull has some decent race pace to get back into the lead for Red Bull Racing. But yeah, the AlphaTauri in second, then you've got Leclerc still in P3 doing a mega job out of Sergio Perez, and then look at this man, Pierre Gasly, P5, really coming up strong here ever since he signed that contract with us for the second part of the season. An insane result at Silverstone, both in quali and the race, but an even better one really, to be honest, right now in this race, to be holding up as it stands the two championship leaders, Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, and convincingly. It's not like he's being completely pressurized and they're dive bombing him to try and overtake him. He's just holding his racing line there and keeping them at bay. So I really do think that ultimate upgrade has really paid out massively here. Like I said, no matter what upgrade it is, it's an ultimate upgrade. It's going to make a difference. But now we go back to our fight then, and we're still looking at the back of the Ferrari, but this time he's side by side with the Renault. Kvyat and Giovinazzi do battle on the exit turn 1. We're having a few issues with traction there, trying to get the power down as early as I can with DRS also open on the rear wing, but Giovinazzi has made the move. The Ferrari is up one more place, but can we get the Renault now? Try and catch him napping a little bit, having been overtaken by Giovinazzi. Can't quite do it up the hill. We're right on the back of him though, up the gearbox and trying to force a move, pretty much pushing him up the hill at this point. But now we're going to switch it from left to right, big dive to the inside and slow it down just about, cut across the second part of the apex. And we're up into P9 of this, well, very gloomy looking GP. I must say, very overcast. It's not going to rain, thankfully for us, but it's very, very gloomy right now. Hopefully the sun comes out and heats up the track a little bit. Otherwise, that hard tyre compound is maybe going to be quite horrendous in the first few laps when we strap on at the pit stops. So at lap number 7 then, and the first few pit stops are being made by the race leaders. And just to highlight where Ricciardo is going to come out then, and he is on a set of medium tyres, so he's definitely doing a 2-stop, that means, and he comes out in a fair bit of traffic there, just ahead of one of the Renaults, but behind 2 Racing Point cars. You've got Hamilton, I think that is just up the road as well, so a fair bit of fast traffic actually in the midfield for him to pass, and even worse for the likes of Leclerc and my teammate Pierre Gasly, and also the championship leader Lando Norris. Those 3 come out in a gaggle of traffic of Haas and Williams cars, so those guys are going to have to try and get through as quickly as they can. Otherwise, the people that stay out a little bit longer may just reap the benefit. Speaking about that, obviously one of those, and all, in fact, all the drivers that start on medium tyres will be just that, staying out longer. And so we take the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Obviously, it won't be the actual lead, I'm sure, but it's going to be nice to have some clean air and being in P1 after so long. But we're going to use that clean air to good effect because it's so powerful, especially when you're in traffic with those slower cars like Haas and Williams in our career mode save. That really does make a huge difference, especially sector 2 and 3. And to that point, if we look at where Sainz is going to feed out into, and also Giovinazzi behind, Sainz comes out behind Verstappen still, but he has jumped the other guys that were ahead of him. He's behind Verstappen. Remember, Verstappen was in P2, then it was Leclerc and Perez. Sainz has jumped Leclerc, he's jumped Gasly, and he's jumped Lando Norris. He was behind all those drivers, and he's jumped all of them by simply staying out for 2 more laps. Then his teammate, then his rivals. The only man he's not jumped is Sergio Perez, but that's because the AlphaTauri, I think, came out in some decent clean air. So, like I said, traffic, very important today, and that's why this 1-stop could be very powerful for us. Just depends on how quick those 2-stoppers are. Ricciardo is in P4, so, you know, obviously the race leader, he's got some decent track position. He's already here right on the back of this train of myself and the 2 Mercedes cars. And speaking of, the Mercedes actually looks very quick in a straight line as Bottas goes to the inside. We squeeze him to the right, and we're going to go the long way around at turn 1, but it's actually just not the right way to go about it. We don't have the rotation there for some reason at the apex of turn 1, and completely just understeered wide, and so Bottas takes the race lead at the moment. But obviously the lead in this battle more like for basically the best track position once we make that first pit stop. Lap 15, the front left tyre is screaming away. We are pushing hard to try and keep up with Bottas. He's motivating me to find some extra time, some green sectors that we weren't finding before when we were in the lead of this Grand Prix. But that front left tyre is absolutely gone now. Pit stop window opens on lap 17, and we're in 2 laps later, thankfully, because that front left tyre is still orange hot to yellow, and as we enter it, completely done there. So it was very odd. I'm not used to the medium tyre getting like that. I'm used to the soft tyre here at Hungary. I've seen it in the past seasons where that front left can get that hot, and just the internal temperature, you're just unable to control it once those tyres go off on the soft compound. But it's very weird to see it on the mediums. But as we talk about that, we jump Valtteri Bottas in the pit stops. Good stuff there, lad. So we may have lost position there with the tyre wear kicking in, and those tyres just not working for us anymore, I guess, into turn 1. I guess that's why we had so much understeer when we battled Bottas, but it doesn't matter because our team have done the job, and we've jumped him back in the pit lane. And more importantly, we've come out in P5, which is absolutely insane. So we have jumped so many people just by simply going longer on the mediums, and those behind who made that earlier stop being held up in so much traffic to the point where me and Bottas are right now ahead of Leclerc, who, remember, was P3 in the road. So myself and the 2 Mercedes cars have made massive gains in this strategy, and so 3 laps later, lap 21, we find ourselves in P4 now, but we are being pressurized massively by the Mercedes guys. They're looking a lot quicker on this hard tyre than I am, and I'm struggling for grip here, and you can see very much so on that right-hander as we get the right tyre Leclerc on the curb and try to accelerate. The oversteer kicks in and we almost lose the back end. We catch it, and now we're going to be side by side with Bottas because of that, because he's able to send one to the inside. Now the outside for this next left-hander. We somehow found the room to still work with him and go side by side, but into the last corner, he gets his nose in once, gets his nose in twice, and both times we step out the throttle to give him a little bit of space, and he's taken a whole yard there and taken advantage of that. But oh my, what on earth has just gone on there? Valtteri Bottas has just spewed into the wall. He's met. Oh! And Albon's come in and hit him as well. What on earth's going on here at the Hungaroring? Lap 22. Safety car is out and we're in. We've come in. It's a bold call, but we are in, and we're going to go on to a new set of medium tyres because those hards were horrendous for me. They weren't working. They weren't heating up whatsoever. And, you know, you saw there, Bottas and Hamilton were right on the back of me. So I think under a safety car, you know, we're all going to be bunched back up. So it's going to be kind of almost like Imola we saw in real life. I don't want to be on worse, harder tyres, and we don't have the advantage now of having this track, you know, position, basically. You know, we're going to lose all that yards. We're going to lose all that distance we had to the cars behind us because we're all going to get bunched up behind the safety car. So in my opinion, I think it's worth it because we've got that many laps left. I think it's worth it to go into mediums and try and push back through and break back through to where we were and basically catch up to where Verstappen and Hamilton was right at the end of that thing. But that was a crazy incident there for Valtteri Bottas. It seemed to be one of those kind of AI wobbles where, you know, he kind of moves a little bit too quickly with DRS open. We saw that with my old teammate Sainz. Remember at Hanoi at the Vietnam Grand Prix in Season 2, was it? You know, in a straight line pretty much. He just wobbled a bit too much on the rear end. The DRS was open. It just yanked his car into the wall. And that's exactly what happened to Bottas. So he's out. So at the moment, the man who leads the way is Sergio Perez in the AlphaTauri. He's gained the lead because obviously Ricciardo was in the lead, but he's doing a 2-stop. He's made that second stop. So he's now down in 3rd place. And Carlos Sainz has come through. He pit onto hards. So even though he was in some traffic, he did make his tyres go longer in the first stint, and therefore he's jumped people with one less stop. So he is looking very good, especially because there's no sign of Lando Norris anywhere near the front here in this train. You've got Perez that leads the way, the 2 Red Bull cars, then comes Lewis Hamilton, Verstappen, then you've got the Renault Machicita in the Renault, Leclerc, myself, then it's De Vries here, Alfa Romeo, then it's Pierre Gasly, and then Ocon and Lando Norris. So he's not even ahead of his teammate who was way down the order, having had an engine penalty. So Lando Norris and also my teammate Gasly both have been hit badly with the traffic this race and the timing of the safety car. But it's an even worse race, it would seem, for Sergio Perez. You're kidding me. For the second time now this season, Perez is going to lose the lead and going to be out of a Grand Prix from the lead. And this time it's under a safety car. I've never seen a car retire like this under a safety car with an engine failure. But it's Perez out of the GP then. And so it's all come up Carlos Sainz then. He's getting all the luck in the world, it would seem. 2 wins in a row, and now he's going to be leading the race going out of the safety car period because this is the last lap then under the safety car. So Sainz leads a Red Bull 1-2 now. Hamilton, that means he's up into 3rd place. So is it now a mistake? Have we made a mistake making this pit stop in hindsight? Because we could have been in P3, but I truly believe these mediums are the way to go as we make a diving move on Leclerc. Can't quite get him though. That Ferrari is obviously a lot better than it used to be, and Leclerc has the momentum into turn 1 to pinch me out of that position, and instead I'm actually looking behind me at the Prix. So hopefully that was the Ferrari just heating up its tyres a bit quicker than us, and it seems so because Leclerc's very slow through this right-hander. We make a darting move into the inside, use all the curb on the entry, and we're up into P7 and straight away on the back of the Renault, maybe through this left-hander into the last corner. This is going to be the real yardstick. I mean, yeah, you can see there, if it weren't for the Renault, I would have been a little bit further up the corner, really, basically. So I think these tyres have the grip. We just need to get our head down and make the moves as quickly as we can. So can we make a very bold dive? It's a huge dive on the Renault, but he's on hard tyres, and you can see there we have the grip for it. That is why I want to go into mediums. The grip difference is unbelievable because these hards, for some reason around here, I think it may be been the colder temps earlier on with the overcast conditions, the hards just felt so bad for me, at least personally, and looks like for these guys as well, not too quick, and the mediums are working quite well for us. Obviously fresh mediums as opposed to worn out ones that some of the other guys are on, maybe on those 2 stops. a la Ricciardo. So we're closing up quite rapidly now to Giovinazzi in Sector 2. And could we make a move potentially in the same place we made a move on his teammate maybe, as we try and feed this through, build the momentum, not wanting to try and lose some speed mid-apex, and then saving a bit of ERS for this right-hander. A little bit too wide though on the left. We got that left tire on the curb, and that kind of stopped us building that kind of toe on the right-hander. And so instead we're going to have to wait maybe patiently until the main straight again to make a move. But we're almost pushing Giovinazzi through the exit of that second last corner into the last round. The outside, you know, that's how much grip we've got on the mediums there. We almost make it work on the outside of the last corner. That would have been quite something. But here we are then. It's a personal best lap time for us, deploying all the ERS in the world. No DRS available yet, of course, because it's only the second lap after this safety car has come in. But we're on the outside, and look at that grip, look at that traction. And we're up into P5 now of the Hungarian Grand Prix. So the next two cars up are going to be the two that were behind us before, Hamilton and Max Verstappen. It's a case of can we catch them and then can we overtake them? Meanwhile, it's a pretty dismal race for our championship leader, Lando Norris, in the McLaren, struggling to overtake the Williams car with ease on the outside of the second last corner. Makes the move finally, and he's there. But look how further up the road his teammate and my teammate are, Gasly and Ocon respectively. Both those guys cut through that traffic, whereas Norris struggled. So, you know, he's already been hit with being kind of down the order with kind of the issue with traffic earlier on the race, and now he's lacking some pace in this last stint. Meanwhile, up ahead of us, like I said, is Hamilton and Verstappen ahead of us, and then it's the two Red Bull cars. 1-2, Sainz leads the way, and he's looking good for his third win in a row maybe. But to be fair, looking at Ricciardo there, he's looking quite punchy, keeping the Spaniard very, very honest. But for us, here we are then, lap 32, closing up to Verstappen. But again, at this same part of the circuit, we nearly decked the car into the wall. That was a lot worse than the wobble we had with Bottas earlier in the race, because that was so much quicker. Like, there's a point where I caught it, was right on the edge of the circuit, so that was nearly race over for me. I think that pretty much put the nail in the coffin in terms of momentum to catch Verstappen and Hamilton, and they're not looking too bad now. Maybe my tyre wear's now kicking for the mediums, I'm not too sure. So in hindsight, I don't know, should I have not pit under the safety car? I still think it was the correct decision, because I really don't think we would have kept Hamilton or Verstappen behind, because Bottas, before he span and crashed, he was overtaking us very easily through this last corner because we were so poor on the hard. So I think Hamilton would have done the same. And Verstappen in the very quick AlphaTauri, I think he would have got us if we were too busy fighting Hamilton and slowing each other down. So in the end, we come across for it's still a very, very decent P5. And to be fair, from where we were in the race earlier, and you know where Gasly qualified in this race, to beat him by 5 places or so, I'm pretty sure, is a very good job. But Sainz has done an even better job there from a very lower position with that engine penalty. He's come through for a third win in a row.
It's a performance to be proud of today from our Hungarian Grand Prix winners. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, the safety car completely changed the race, didn't it? It's hard to say exactly what would have happened without it, but there's no question that they came out of that situation in a good position.
Here come today's winners. The team at Red Bull have done a phenomenal job recently. It's clear to see that they've put in the work, and they should be proud of the victory they secured here.
So there you have it then. I think that should mean the Spaniard takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship for the first time now this season. Ricciardo P2, so it's a very strong weekend then again for the Red Bull Racing team. Hamilton with a massive third place. That's the highest, I think that's the first podium Hamilton's AI has got in about a good season and a half. I'm not going to lie. I think it's really been that dismal of a time for Hamilton's AI in our career mode save game file. So it's kind of weird to see him right up there. But in that maybe could have been us. Like I said, you can say a lot of things in hindsight though. In the moment, I truly felt like the mediums were the better way to go, because when the safety car came out, I was pretty much, before that came out, I was ready to be overtaken by both Mercedes cars and Verstappen very quickly on those hards. So the safety car changed things and was able to give us that kind of free choice of a second pit stop, and so we went for it. And to be fair, against the Ferrari cars and the Renault, we were rapid. We just couldn't quite make the most of it at the end with a little half spin and the mistake there just to kind of lose some momentum. But it was still a very strong race. P5, I'll take that at the Hungarian GP. The car is making progress. You can clearly see that in qualifying and also in the race. And we remain in a very comfy P5 now ahead of Renault and Mercedes. And I'm feeling more and more confident now of keeping that P5. You know, before the British Grand Prix, I was a little bit worried that Renault and Mercedes could start to close up on us and we could lose more positions in the championship. But I think we can hold down that P5 very nicely. And I don't know, I would say maybe go for more, but the other guys have scored so many more points. It's basically a case of, can we go for better race results? So I'm looking to go for better than P5. And I think with the progress we're making, at the rate we're making it, I think by the end of the season, I think we should definitely be in a position to be fighting for the podiums regularly. Obviously, it's not even that long to go. There's only, 7 races left or what in this Grand Prix season. So hopefully we'll get to that point very, very soon. But guys, if you did enjoy that episode, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I will see you guys next time.